Hi, welcome back to our YouTube channel. I'm Dana Golden, and with me here is David Marion, and we're going to talk to you both today about gambling. That was one of David's addictions that we talked about in the very first episode when we introduced ourselves. And we had mentioned the fact that David had a start to his gambling, and we're going to talk about how that started. It's going to go into cross addiction because of other addictions he had previously had. And then David will talk to you about all the feelings associated with that addiction and how it felt in comparison to previous addictions. So it was actually Las Vegas that started David's gambling. I had spent a lot of time there since I was 7 years old because my dad's business partner lived there, and I had many fond memories of Las Vegas. I loved the town. I loved everything about it, from the entertainment to the food. And my dad happens to live there now, and at the time I was taking David to Las Vegas to kind of show my stomping grounds where I half grew up, and also to meet my father for the first time. This was when we were dating before we were married. So I was super excited to share that experience with him. And it was different because it was a very different experience than I had with Las Vegas. As much as I enjoyed all the facets of Las Vegas, David immediately got hooked into the gambling part of Las Vegas. And I noticed this because I would go to the pool and lay out, and David chose to go to the casino. I would be meeting my dad for dinner, and David would show up late because he would get stuck at a table. There was one time we were actually in line at a buffet, and when David realized that he had a few minutes before we were going to get into the buffet, he said, "I'll be right back," and he chose to go gamble while my dad and I stood in line for the buffet. So I noticed right away how the aspect of the gambling had kind of caught his attention really fast, and I didn't know why that was, but he's going to tell you all about that. We're sitting outside right now, socially distanced, because we aren't quarantined together. So I will step out and David will step in.
I remember the euphoria walking into the city of Vegas and just being around all the action. And for a guy who's addicted to action and feels good about all this stuff, it was an incredible high from the beginning. I always wanted to hear or see how these gamblers won all this big money, and eventually that would turn into my life. But even the first few times, I remember it was just that feeling of walking in and catching that buzz when I was gambling, and whether it's a small win, a little win, any victory, I remember it like it was yesterday. The feeling resonated with me with a way that similar to a good high on drugs, and I knew I wanted to get more of it. Eventually I kept going to Vegas, and Dana will tell you about our lifestyle out there, because we turned into these whales out there that got treated royally to the greatest events, the greatest shows, anything we wanted, the penthouses, and eventually we would take our nanny and my kids out there, and spent a lot of time until it caught up. So eventually it ended up catching up with me, as all addictions do. And I brought it home with me, and I started gambling on the golf course, started playing gin rummy at the country clubs for really high stakes, betting on games, ridiculous amounts. I remember sitting in front of the TV having my kids root for Southeast Louisiana State or something, just because we had to cover a spread. But yeah, the real danger of it is most of the time I gambled, I was straight. And that's the compulsion of this. When people gamble, most of the time they're doing it sober, which means it's a lot harder to recover from. It's not like you're detoxing from this and you're gonna move into some type of recovery. Well, you're detoxing when you're sober as well as gambling sober. Eventually I started doing pills and gambling when I was, doing pills, and it was that whole lifestyle that just became so toxic that I couldn't stop it as much as I wanted to. I got addicted to the high, I got addicted to the win, I got addicted to the money, hitting so many different wins over 100,000, 200,000 was never enough. Always thinking, after a good high, let's go back the next day. After a low, go back the next day. And that's the vicious cycle of a compulsive gambler.
So as the spouse of a compulsive gambler, many perks come along with that. As our trips got more frequent to Vegas, we were probably planning trips there once a month. the stakes got higher and higher, and eventually, like David was saying, he was a whale. He becomes a high roller there, and he's treated to the best of everything. So as the spouse, super fun. I don't have to do the gambling. I don't have to get sucked into the casino, but there was a lot of perks for me, whether it was concert tickets or fight tickets. We had limos anywhere we wanted to go. We had shopping sprees from different hotels that would want to bring us in, but really David in. When we had kids, we started bringing the kids with the nanny once a month so that they can enjoy the perks and the lifestyle that we had. It was very easy to get sucked into that lifestyle. There's nothing bad about it in the moment. It all seemed pretty cool and pretty special. For my 40th birthday, I decided to have my party in Las Vegas, and we had 50 people come out for my birthday, and we had all the rooms comped. We had an Elvis impersonator there. It was just a blast. There was nothing about it that there was complaint about. And we got to do it once a month until I realized that it was becoming a real problem financially in our household. And so between the financial piece and the fact that David just couldn't stop obsessing and compulsively thinking about gambling in the next trip and what he was going to do and how it was going to be, and just all of the ruminating that goes along with that obsessive thinking. And I realized how unhealthy it was, and I stopped accompanying him on those trips because I knew that it wasn't healthy for me, and I certainly wasn't going to be able to slow him down if I was still partaking. So that kind of became the beginning to the end of our trips to Vegas.
So obviously a big part of this is knowing when to say when, right? But unfortunately, when you're dealing with substance use disorder, you're dealing with compulsivity, you're dealing with an obsession, there are parts of this that are just way beyond your wildest control, and it is completely out of your hands. I noticed at times, I remember I was out on a golf junket with some guys, and I was playing on a Pro-Am out there. And I remember that weekend, I played with a golfer who was on the PGA Tour. He was a rookie. And the night before, I won $200,000. And I had told him the next day when we were golfing together, and he just looked at me and said, wow, I just want to make $125,000 this whole year to keep my playing card on the PGA Tour. And that really, really resonated with me, understanding it. Was it enough to make me stop? No. There were trips that I went out and I talked to some friends that I said, I think this is becoming a problem. I think I'm getting in way above myself. But it wasn't enough for me to stop at the time. Hence, probably the reason why I ended up getting indicted, because I kept gambling, and I gambled too far. And as a result, the federal government saw that I was still gambling, and there was probably 3 weeks left to my statute of limitations on my indictment. They ended up indicting me. So I think the great compulsion of every gambler is that someday they can gamble like a normal person again. The problem is, once you cross that line, same thing with drugs, alcohol, food, any type of addiction, you never go back to the way it was. For me, the guy I used to play, ended up playing $100 slots, going to a penny machine. I don't know if that would be fun. Although we had a situation years later when I did go to the local casino to get all my tax returns from that year, waiting in line, and I had $20 and I stuck it in a penny machine, and of course I'm playing max credit, which was probably $5 a pull, and on the third pull it had all these credits light up, and then the fourth pull it stopped working, and all of a sudden they came over to me and said, sir, is this your machine? Right away I'm thinking I did something wrong, the guild, and I said, yes it is. And they said, well sir, we'd just like to tell you, you just won that car up there. And this is the time that I could not believe it. I had just won a brand new Mustang, and I remember calling Dana to tell her that I had just won this Mustang, and her first response was, can they make it a convertible? And I said, this is the one they're giving us. They don't have much options. It's the one on top of the machines that I won. I don't have much of a choice, so hence that's what we ended up doing, and ended up taking the cash instead. Obviously it took me a prison sentence for me to end up quitting gambling. But I hope you don't have to get that far. I hope people that are struggling with this understand that there is help. There's ways to reach out for help. The first thing is you got to let people know that what's going on. This is such a disease of isolation and loneliness, and we keep these secrets hidden inside us. We don't want people to find out what is really going on. But obviously, when there's such pain and there's stuff going on, you have to be able to ask for help and realize you're not the only person that has gone through this. Others have gone through it before. You look to see others get in the hole with you and show them the steps that they took necessary to get out of that hole, to recover.
As David says, addiction is the disease of loneliness and isolation, and your secrets keep you sick. Please reach out. Please talk to somebody that can offer some help. You can reach David at theliferecoverycoach.com. He will respond to your emails and questions within 24 hours. There is help out there for anybody suffering, or if you have questions because you know someone that's suffering, we're so happy to help and direct anybody in a path that can help them into recovery and get out of the addictive cycle.
Thank you so much for watching this week's video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, you can leave comments, suggestions, thoughts down below. Thank you.
Thank you.